Let's say your average months of inventory in GTA is 5 right now. So what you do is 1 divided by 5, that effectively gets you a 20% chance of selling within 1 month. You better be that 20% that actually sells, because the next property is going to sell for less, and you do not want to have to keep chasing the market down. And this is where people get into these weird gimmick things, because they're trying to undercut the market by listing things for $1 or undercutting and holding offers. But when there's a history of we know what the seller has wanted for the property, it's a dead giveaway. And even if you changed your mind, it looks like you still want that price. So that's why you cannot waste your first listing and burn through those initial days on market where the real buyers are going to come and give you an actual offer at fair market price. Be sure to keep watching as I show you exactly what works to get homes sold in this market and how to avoid getting absolutely crushed by today's brutal pricing game. Hi, my name is Zen. If you enjoy my data-driven and number-crunching real estate updates, be sure to like and subscribe. Some homes in Toronto are being listed for $1, and here's why. This is going to be what you need to hear, but not what you want to hear if you're planning to sell a property in Toronto right now, unless you have that one house that is 11 out of 10 that everyone wants. You need to price your home correctly. There is no gimmick, there is no strategy, there is no special tactic, secret buyer list, international, Chinese, foreign buyer that's going to buy your home in this market if you're overpriced. You need to price it right. It's very simple, but it's hard to execute because psychologically, everybody wants what you could have had, call it in 2022, when prices were up 22%. So now pricing it right, even though it's hard for a lot of sellers to accept, and you do have to undercut some people depending on the amount of inventory in your segment of the market, but it is what needs to be done to get it sold. And this is not me coming at this as, hey, an agent just wants a quick sell. We've seen this time and time again, and I'm gonna go through the psychology with you in most cases on why gimmicks like this $1 listing does not work. You just need to price right, look good, check the boxes, acknowledge the problems or issues that may come up with the listing, and solve it. That's what a listing agent is supposed to do. And you can see this on the back end for the MLS system that listing for $1 is not new. You can see we have 74 listings currently listed for $1, and a lot of the times they've been reserved for weird properties that are hard to find comparables for, or they have a very unique proposition that it's hard to value. A lot of times before, we could do this with land. But right now, when you're pricing your subdivision home or your condo that's very likely to have a comparable for $1, it's very obvious that you're running out of strategies to actually deploy to sell the property other than just dropping your price to what actually market value is. Now, I've highlighted this part over here where this is very important. The $1 listing comes up when sellers and agents have run out of conventional ways to attract attention to their listing. And the one thing that always works is pricing it right for where the market is. But the problem is, can you, the seller and the agent, agree on what the right price is? Because if you price it too low, you leave money on the table. If you price it too high, you burn through your days on market and then you look stale. So when you look stale because you've tried a higher price or what you want as a price, then that is actually what is going to force you to try gimmicks such as $1 to attract attention. And even if you don't want to do the $1, I am seeing so many listings right now where they would have listed for, call it $2 million, and clearly has not worked. Then they drop their price to $1.5 million when in fact they maybe still want $1.9 million. When in fact they could have just started at $1.9 million if that was the market price. And that's the challenge right now. You have to understand that, generally speaking, if your property sits on the market for too long, most buyers would be like, hey, what is wrong with that property? Your A buyers, the buyers who know exactly what they want and know exactly what they want to pay and they know what the market is going to come and look at your property generally within the first week or two. Anything past 3 to 4 weeks are the people who are going to be like, if I can't get a deal on that, maybe I'll buy it. Which means that you're going to be selling it at under market price. So you want to attract your target buyer, be in their shoes, and cater the listing to that demographic. Now, there's a very good, interesting stat here where it says listing for $1 never works. It's born out of desperation. I 100% agree with that. And typically comes as a result of the sellers who do not and won't accept fair market value. But one of the challenges right now is it's very hard to dictate what fair market value is if you cannot find something similar to yours that hasn't sold in the last 60 days or so, because we haven't had that many sales. Now, the funny thing is that it says that the success rate of selling a home for $1 is close to 1%. So while it's possible, it's very rare. So the idea that when you play games with your listing, it's a terrible idea, especially when you have your House Sigma apps in the world that list all the history of the listing, or whatever real estate app you use to crawl the MLS database. We can see when someone tries to sell for X and then they relist at a different price. Relisting at a different price doesn't work that well right now in this current market because everyone has access to the data, good or bad. So you need to just list it at fair market price and make sure it shows well. And later in this video, I'll explain to you the rationale of why you should list properly in this current market where things are a little bit slower. Before you even think about selling, don't let another chatbot price your biggest asset. Your property is not just another number. Hit the link in the description below and I'll send you a personalized assessment with real data and expert insights so you can sell with confidence on your terms. But first, I want to show you the psychology of a seller and explain to you how you can save a few $1,000s or even tens of thousands of dollars by not overpricing your listing. Because I have personally been in that situation and every seller thinks their property is the best, myself included. But when I look at the numbers don't lie. They tell me otherwise. So this is generally what happens. So let's say the fair market value of your property is over here, which is 100%. You can call it $100,000, $1 million, whatever the case be. It's over there. Now, you decide that you wanted to start at the property at the original listing of 100% because you have another listing that you see is also listed for 100% or again, $100,000 or $1 million. And you're like, my property is better than property. So I therefore will list it at the same thing, but because my property is better, I am going to get the seller first. Here's where things start getting wrong. In a buyer's market where there's a lot of properties similar to yours, you have to understand that the buyer is the one that is driving the bus. They're the one controlling where to go. And yes, your property may be slightly better, but if the other person is willing to give a better price, that buyer can also send out feelers and offers to both properties because you have conditions on them anyways. So you need to basically undercut that person so that you get the deal done. Because at the end of the day, any good buying agent who understands the market and is trying to get the best deal and set the new floor for their buyers will basically send out feelers for every single listing. So what will happen is basically if that property sells and they sell for, call it 95% of the list price or 5% below, then this 95% becomes the new comparable. And then you realize you're like, because that property sold for 95%, I'm never gonna get the 100% there because something similar has sold. And then you drop your price to 92. But then if there's even more inventory that's comparable to yours, then another one sells because you didn't undercut that other person, you get to 90%. And you're forced to constantly undercut. And what we see, unfortunately, a lot of stubborn sellers are, and this is why I'm making this video, not for you stubborn sellers, for anyone who's trying to sell right now, understand the psychology because your mind is playing tricks on you. You do not want to basically chase the market down like this and keep adjusting and terminating and relisting as the market goes down. Now, obviously, I'm not saying the market's going to go down 10 or 12%, whatever the case may be, but if there is enough inventory, all it takes is one person to blink. Maybe they're desperate, they're distressed, they're cash flow negative a lot, they're over leveraged, maybe they just lost a job to sell for less. Then that one sets the comp and you have to undercut the rest of them at that new baseline. And this is the mistake you have to not make. Whereas a smart seller would effectively just say, hey, you know what? If everyone's at 100, I'm coming in right at 95 and I am going to set the new floor because I do not want to chase it down. So instead of chasing the market down like this, what you need to do is start strong and go straight down and undercut everybody so that you are the next to sell. And that's exactly what happens when you're in a high months of inventory situation. Let's say your average months of inventory in GTA is 5 right now. So what you do is 1 divided by 5, that effectively gets you a 20% chance of selling within 1 month. You better be that 20% that actually sells because the next property is going to sell for less and you do not want to have to keep chasing the market down. Hey, it's me interrupting myself. Ready to make a move? Just one free call, no hassle, but decades of experience to work for you. And this is where people get into these weird gimmick things because they're trying to undercut the market by listing things for $1 or undercutting and holding offers. But when there's a history of we know what the seller has wanted for the property, it's a dead giveaway. And even if you changed your mind, it looks like you still want that price. So that's why you cannot waste your first listing and burn through those initial days on market where the real buyers are going to come and give you an actual offer at fair market price. And a good analogy to explain how a lot of this works in like the dating scene, because I've used this analogy before, is if Toronto real estate, all the sellers were girls and all the buyers were boys, historically, there's always been way more boys than there have been girls. So the girls are accustomed to the boys chasing after them. But right now, it's in the exact opposite. There are way more girls, way more sellers than there are actual boys. And then the boys and the buyers are way more selective and way more choosy because there's so many options to choose from. So they need to make sure that they're getting a 10 out of 10, an 11 out of 10, or 12 out of 10 for a very good price because there's so many choices. But in order to sell, you can imagine like this. You're a girl that's walking to the bar for the first time. You need to be the prettiest looking girl so that it turns all the boys' heads, which includes good photos, good marketing, good staging, and good pricing. That's the most important thing, because if you have all the other things that are good, but you're overpriced, it's not going to turn the heads of all the buyers. You need to come in the first week or two with all of those things that are checked on the box so that the real buyers will come and give you an offer if they're serious about looking at the property. So that's how you're going to have to position yourself to actually sell the property. Otherwise, you will be chasing the market down in this analogy where things get worse and worse. And if you're hoping that things are going to get better so that the pricing can go up in this direction, you just have to monitor the months of inventory. And right now, the months of inventory keeps getting higher and higher. So how long you have to wait, you're going to have to see. That's a strategy where you're basically just hoping for the better on things you cannot control. But looking at the data says that we're continuing to have properties stay on market longer, take longer to sell, and more inventory is piling up. So therefore, there should be more additional pressure on prices to come down. And if you want to understand why inventory keeps piling up, it's because we're having a lot of economic signals that we're going to get a recession. People are losing their jobs. Banks are predicting a slower economy. GDP is predicted to go down. This is exactly what I talk about this video over here that's on the screen. And if you want to understand more about it, make sure to click on that video. I'll see you in that next video. Until next time, your move, your future. See ya!